Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful to be part of the MAL community. And to everybody who's listening, as you heard there, my name is Julie Hutchison. And what I'm going to do today is hopefully get you to do some work as well as me. And so the first thing I would like to find out is that there is a little hands button on here where you can actually raise your hand. And I want to ask you, would you like to make more impact in your business or in your organization where you are working? So please raise your hands if you would like to be able to do that. Okay. Well, and raise your hands again if actually you'd like to do it without working so hard, actually to work less hard and get better results. Because that's what we want to talk about today. What I want to talk about is helping you to get better results through better leadership. So maybe you sometimes feel like this. You ever feel like you're the one who's doing the work, you're the one who's so busy, and you just feel like maybe you've got a ball and chain around your ankle and you just can't get done what you want to get done because you're doing too much of the work. And if you have a team that maybe they're not actually doing the things that you want them to do, and that can be really frustrating, and at the end of the day you feel like that man on the steps where you just think, oh, I wish it would be different, because you're tired all the time and you seem to be doing all of that work and you don't necessarily get the results that you want either because that team aren't putting in the effort. But what if it was more like this? What if it was that when you came to work or in your business, actually the people come to you and they've already done the things you wanted them to do and you haven't even had to ask, and they come with their own ideas, and they're brilliant ideas, and they are really aligned to where you would love to take your business or your team. And you'd be surprised that they actually managed to do all the things that you wanted them to do before they were supposed to even do them, and you have to work less. That would be amazing. You could take a holiday, you could turn off your phone, turn off your emails, and still things would work. How amazing would that be? Well, it is possible. What I'm talking about is about real natural leadership and having great impact in your organization. What I believe in, and what as Transforming Performance, our company, myself and my business partner Jan, believe in, is that leadership is not just a qualification. Of course, qualifications are really important, but it's not just about that. Leadership is about how you show up in the business, the impact of you and the behaviors and the mindset that you display on a daily basis. So what that means is that actually how you show up means that's how people are going to perform. And so it's really important that you are aware of, well, what is the impact of you in the business? And if you have other leaders that are managing teams, then what is the impact of those people in the business? Because the better impact each individual has, the better the results of the business. And as Mr. Jeffrey said there, I'm all about practicalities, and so I really want to help you to get better results in your business. So, well, why is that so important? Well, nowadays competition is fierce. The whole global scale of things now is, it means that, but we're competing with people all over the world. You see, I'm here, I'm in the UK, and we're competing with people from all over the place. And what that means is that you have to be able to compete with the best of the best. So being a great leader and having that great impact means that business will perform better and be able to compete across a far wider sector of where you want it to be. So now is the time to improve those skills and get the skills across your whole business, so that people know that leadership and the way they show up is the way to be in your business. So why am I sitting here telling you this? Well, there's a few pictures of me there, so I might as well tell you a little bit. My background originally was manufacturing engineering, and then I became a police officer for 16 years. I was an inspector in one of the UK police forces, and I saw some amazing leadership styles. I saw some amazing people, and it had a really great effect on me. However, if you'd have been with me back about 20 years ago when I joined, you'd have seen a really, really confident person. But if you'd have been with me about 10 years ago, when I had a very different boss, it had an amazingly different impact on me, because she was the kind of leader that prevented me from performing, not enabled me to perform. And what that meant was that myself and a number of people began to not perform in that area and lost confidence. And that was something that made me realize I never want to work for a leader like that. And I never wanted to be a leader like that. And so what happened then was I trained as a coach and went back to my leadership skills and became further qualified. I had a degree in management and manufacturing engineering and management, but I went off and then became more qualified, a member of the Chartered Management Institute and the Institute of Leadership and Management. But what I realized was I've got a lot of experience about what is it that makes a leader? What is it on a practical daily basis that actually makes or breaks that team and makes them want to perform? And that's what I want to talk about with you today. Because what I realize is yes, you can have all the qualifications in the world, but if you don't actually use them every day and use the techniques and use your great impact, then actually it's all worthless and it just goes in a drawer as another tick in the box. So what are the 6 keys to being a better leader? What did I find out? Well, first of all, let's just move my slides down. There are 6 essential elements to create great leadership. The first one, which I shall put up there in a moment, is so important, because if you don't get this right, what you'll probably find is that actually you're going to get somewhere in your business, but it won't necessarily be where you want it to go. And what it will also mean is that people won't follow you there, and they'll be doing their own thing. They'll be running their own agendas, and you're probably even more frustrated. And what that is focus and direction, is knowing where you are going. But not just that, not just knowing where you're going and where you want the business to go, but actually making sure that everyone in your organization understands that, everyone in your team, and as far as your business goes, making sure they understand and are aligned to that. And I'll use an example of a Viking boat. And if you think about a Viking boat, everybody has an oar and people are rowing their oars, and they are trying to do that in time. They are trying to do it at the same speed, with the same pressure, with the same energy. And if you get one person in that Viking boat putting their oar in the wrong way or not putting it at all, then that boat isn't going to go so fast, and it's not going to go in the right direction if you don't have the right beat of the drum at the back of the boat. And I see so many people with my clients where they come to me and they say, well, nobody seems to be following what I'm doing. Nobody cares about what I'm trying to achieve with my business. Now, maybe you have that issue too, where you feel that actually nobody really seems to be very interested in what the business is trying to achieve. They just come and they do the work and then they go home at the end of the day, but they're not really very engaged with it. Well, maybe this is why. I see so many people that if they have a vision, then nobody else knows about it. It's in a drawer somewhere, or it's written on a wall in really complicated language. And some businesses I go and see don't even have that vision and haven't really thought about it because they're too busy just managing day to day. And people can't follow if you don't know where you're going. I suggest you write that down. People can't follow if you don't know where you're going. And it might sound really obvious, but actually so many people don't look up from being in the weeds of what they're trying to do on a daily basis. They don't look up. So my question to you is, what's your vision? Do you have a really clear vision? And have you really understood it? And have the people who work with you and for you understood what you're trying to achieve? Are your oars rowing at the same speed? Is everybody putting their oar in at the same pace? So this is the first point, really, that is just the crux of the whole thing, because if you get this wrong, it doesn't matter how great your team are, they'll be going in the wrong direction. So, focus and direction, what's next? Well, the next point that we're going to look at is just as important, because even if you know where you're going, if nobody wants to come with you and nobody wants to take the business in that way, and they're too busy arguing amongst themselves, then it doesn't matter if you know it or not. If you get this wrong, then people will probably spend more time on their own agenda than your agenda. They won't be working together. You'll probably be getting conflict and upset and really low level of performance. But if you get it right, then people will be on fire helping you to achieve it, because this is about engagement. Now, what do I mean by engagement? Well, engagement is about people understanding and wanting to be working together. So understanding each other, understanding what makes each other tick, and utilizing that for better performance. Often I see people in business who are not engaged, and they are watching the clock. I don't know if you've ever had a job like this or been in it. Clearly it won't be where you are now. Hopefully not. But have you ever had a job or been in a business where you kept looking at your watch because it was so boring, or you just didn't feel understood, or you really didn't want to be around that boss? And when that happens, then the productivity of that team is very, very low, and it is massively impacted by the human element of creating relationships and engaging people. And what I see a lot of, and we work with quite often technical experts who are and professionals who are in a leadership position, is that people feel comfortable with the technical and functional nature of what they do, but they aren't so skilled in how they engage in a human way with people, how they really understand what makes people tick. And a leader can achieve so much more when they get this right. And we work with all sorts of people in teams, in groups, and individuals to help to teach and coach how to engage with people, how to understand the different types of people and their different focus. For example, some people are more task focused and some people are more people focused. How do you deal? How do you write an email? How do you do a presentation for different kinds of people? How do you engage them to want to help you in your business? And that's where the skill lies in this section. So my question to you is, do you know your team? Do you understand what motivates them? Do you understand what makes them tick? Do you understand what's really going to turn them off? When you do, and you really get into that team and their real human needs, then you will be a better leader and they will follow you because of it. But that's not all, because wanting to do something and knowing the big picture of focus and direction is all very well, but there are other things. So let's have a look at the next one. Well, this next one, if you don't do this, then you'll probably find you're just doing too much, and you've got people knocking on your door, and you've got people asking you how to do things, and you're probably doing them for them. And what this is about is making sure that you've got the right skills in the right area and that you are developing people. Now that may sound really obvious, but when you get this right, what you start to see is not only capability and functional capability, but what you see is confidence. And when you get confidence, when your team are confident, then that's when people start to do things that you want them to do without you having to ask them. And wouldn't that be great? Without you having to ask them. So capability and confidence is really important here. And when we look at skills, what we're looking at is, have you got the right people? Are they in the right roles? And how are you developing them? Probably, can you develop them? Or do you need to replace them with somebody else? And when we work with our clients here, what we help them to do is to understand what skills are required in the business and how to grow those skills. And here it's very important that we help people to develop what we call a coaching style of leadership. Actually, not just giving people the answers, not just giving them the next job on the list, but actually coaching them to develop that capability and confidence to be their own boss. Now that all sounds very well, but some of you may be thinking, ooh, I'm not overly sure about that, because it sounds a bit scary, and it's probably a bit scary because of the next part. Giving away control is kind of difficult for some people because of this next element. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about mindset. Because you can say you want to develop people and give them the confidence to do their own thing and make their own decisions. But here, if we don't get the mindset right, then actually it won't happen. And it won't happen because we're going to stop it from happening ourselves. And if you get this wrong, this is the bit that stops all of us from actually stepping back. And this is the bit that makes us busier and busier and busier and more stressed in our organization. I'll give you an example. We'll use me. Why not? When I first started my business, it was just me. And I had to do everything. So I got fairly good at everything. And I knew what I knew because it was me. So it was easy. But then I took on my business partner, Jan, and I'm assuming Jan might be listening actually. So hello, Jan, I'm admitting this now, that actually it was really hard for me to let go. Because, well, I felt that it was my thing. I developed it. It was my baby, so to speak. And what if it went wrong? What if I gave this job to somebody else? What if that person didn't do it good enough? What if I told them wrong? What if I didn't want them to do it? There were all sorts of things that stopped me. And I had to look at myself and say, well, actually, I need to change my mindset here. Because the problem with that is that if I can't trust somebody, then I can't give that away, which means I have to be very, very busy. When we took on our first personal assistant, we had to do the same thing. We had to trust to give it away. So when you get this mindset right of, well, what is the mindset of a leader? What is my role and what should I be thinking? Then that's when you're able to let things go. Because if we think about what is the mindset of the leader, well, the leader is not there to do all the work. Yes, they need to know how to do things, and yes, they need to know what to do when, and to be willing to get in there when needed. But actually, our job is to leverage the resources that we have. So if we have people that can do something, then we should help them to achieve it. And we'll talk a bit more about that later. So the mindset is getting it right will help us, and getting it wrong will hinder our progress as a leader. But it's not just mindset, because what comes after mindset? Well, if you've got to think the right things, you've then got to do the right things. And this is next element is where we see so many people fall down. If you get this wrong, what you'll find is that nobody actually wants to work for you, and they are feeling that actually you're a negative influence rather than a positive influence in the organization. And when that happens, people avoid you. People will leave. You'll lose staff. And you might end up having to pay more money to people to actually get them to come, but then they'll still leave, and you wonder why. And that's because it's about the impact that you're having, the behaviors that you're displaying. And we mentioned this before. Leadership is about what you do and what you think, but you've got to actually think the right things, and you've got to then go ahead and do the right things. So I'll ask you the question, have you ever had somebody in your business world, when they've walked in the room, you've felt the energy be sucked away from that room? And actually, when they leave, you're relieved. Now, going back to my boss when I was a police officer, that is how I felt. As soon as that person left, I felt relieved. And that's because the impact of that person was so negative on me that I couldn't actually work for her. Have you ever been in that position? Many people have. And when we work with people, we find that actually a lot of people are not aware of the impact that they have. They're not aware whether or not they have a really good influence on people, or whether actually people are thinking, I wish you just please leave. And that awareness is the first port of call when you start looking at yourself as a leader. So if you're to think about the last 2 interactions that you've had with your staff, just take your mind back to how that felt. Take your mind back to how you behaved and how you were thinking. Is your impact positive? Or are you one of those ones where people wait for you to leave the room? When we work with people, it's one of the first things we do. We do a thing called a 360-degree feedback, where we actually go and ask staff, peers, and bosses what the impact of this person actually is in the organisation. And sometimes it's quite enlightening. So I would suggest that for yourselves is to actually think about that. Go and ask people, what do you think of how I behave and how I think? And sometimes that can be really difficult, because if it's not the normal style of what you do, then it's quite tricky. But actually, it's really important that you do it. It may feel a bit uncomfortable, but it's the best way of really understanding how you can improve as a leader. So once you've got that focus and direction, you know where you're going and everybody else does, people are engaged with you, they've got the right skills and you're able to develop them, you're thinking like a leader, you're behaving in a really positive way that encourages people to work. There's just one more thing that you need to be able to do. And if you don't get this right, the biggest problem you'll have is that although they understand the big picture of your vision, they don't really know what to do and how to do it on a daily basis. And that's this: systems. So what do I mean by that? Well, imagine that you were a cake making company. You made the most beautiful cakes, and your vision is that we are the best cake manufacturer in the world. We make the most beautiful cakes. Well, it's a big picture vision, because what we haven't defined there is, well, what sort of cakes? How does it look? So if you went on holiday and asked your really engaged staff who've got amazing skills, who want to be there, if you asked them, well, can you make me 10 really beautiful cakes? You'd probably get 10 completely different cakes, because you need to make sure that the systems and processes that are in place in your business are there too. The detail of how do you do something. Now, it doesn't matter whether they design that detail or whether you design that detail, but it has to be. And quite often what we find is that when businesses grow, a lot of those systems and processes are in the boss's head, in the owner's head, or in the team leader's head. And it's really tricky to get it out of somebody's head. We can't mind read yet. And so what happens is that the minute somebody tries to take a day off or go to a meeting, go to a conference or do something different, everything falls apart and standards start to slip. And what that means is that actually you can't trust anybody. So it doesn't matter whether you're thinking like a leader and you're behaving like a leader, you can't trust other people to do it because you haven't set them up to know exactly what is it that's expected of me. So you'll probably get somebody will make a chocolate cake, somebody will make a cream cake, and there'll be different shapes and sizes. So in your business, what you need to do is to make sure that you've got the right processes and systems so that people can follow what you want them to do and how you want them to do it. And then they don't need to ask your your opinion, and they don't need to knock on your door every day and ask you, how do I do something? What do I do here, Bob? Because actually they can make their own decisions. So when we have this confidence that we've built down here in the skills area, they have a confidence to apply that to the focus and direction and the systems that you've put in place. So those are the 6 essential elements that we work with leaders on to create a better leadership style for them. And you can apply this in 10 minutes, hence the name of the webinar here. Because 10 minutes is all you need, really, to go through these 6 things and ask yourself a question. Which one of these was missing when something went wrong? So if you had a bad day and you were thinking, oh, my team, they're just not doing what they should be doing, or nobody's taking ownership of this, nobody really cares, ask yourself, which one of these is missing from the way I dealt with this? Is it that they didn't really understand what they were trying to achieve? Is it that they really don't want to be here? Is it that they don't have the skills and I've not enabled them to have confidence? Or is it me? Is it my thinking and my behavior? Or are there just no systems? And if you really sit down and ask that question on the issues that you have, on the issues that your team have with their teams, then what that means is that you can actually really drill down to what the problem is, and then you can act upon it, because all this is about changing your behavior, changing your results through really being aware of what's going on. So yes, qualifications are wonderful, but actually if you do this, then you will improve every single day. Quite often what my clients do is they take those 6 elements and they print them out and they put them on a laminated copy and they check. I know some of them have got a very small copy of them in their pockets, and they just check and ask themselves a question. Let me just check in with what I should be doing and how I should be thinking and being. And that works quite well. So as I said, we work with our clients on those areas, and we have coaching programs and training programs to work with people on those, and we call that the team performance engine, which is why there was a picture of an engine at the start. And just so for completeness, the areas that we work on here, the trip sat nav is to give people focus and direction. We give people engagement with the team accelerator process. The development dynamo helps people to engage the skills of their team. The catalytic converter helps people to develop the right mindset. The mission ignition helps people to develop the right impact. And the cruise control helps you to go on holiday because you've got systems. So my question for you is, what's your dashboard look like? You see here, one of my clients has actually measured what they've got. So if I were to ask you now, what is your one area, I won't ask you for all 6, but what's your one area you think you need to maybe work on a little bit? Could you give me, you can type into the chat box if you like, but you can give me which area you think that you would work on first. What is it that you think, do you know what, I could do with some help on that? Because that's where you maybe should start. Ask your team. If you don't know the answer to this question, this is a definite time to ask your team. So you can go back and have a look. If anybody wants to actually put in the chat box, then please feel free, and I won't say your name, but I'll give an example. So for me, quite often, I would say it's around that systems. It's about getting those systems out of my head so that I can then trust people to actually do the right thing. Quite often, we literally have to interview somebody to get that information out of their head, to be able to write those systems so that we can then apply them and give people confidence to actually take over. So I want you to take away from this webinar, score yourself out of 10 subjectively. What is it that I'm good at? What is it I'm not? And take it away and ask your team. So let's have a look at one of those areas for the next 10 minutes and see, well, what do I do about that? So here we go. We're going to look at mindset. So we're going to look at what I call the catalytic converter. So here we go. This is the choice that we have. On the left, we can utilize the team. On the right, we can do it ourselves. So the benefit of doing it ourselves is we know we can have it how we want it to be, and we know that it's going to be right, don't we? But when we do it ourselves, as it says here, we're limited. We've only got so much we can do. We're not leveraging. We become stressed because we're trying to do more, and we have to work harder. But if we utilize a team, if we leverage resources that we've got, it means that we can scale up. But in order to do that, we have to trust. I'm getting a sore throat now. So what we end up really, the reality quite often, and what we see in our clients is really, really busy people managing more and more staff, still doing the technical work, and still having to really dig in and do more work so that to get the results that they need. Is that you? I hope not. So why does that happen? Well, here are 3 minds in the business. When people start their own business, they're really, really good technically. The technician in the business, they're making the cakes, they're creating the engineering components, or they are delivering a great service, whatever it might be. And that's the fun bit, because that's what somebody loved. That's why they started their business probably. But when the business grows, actually what we really need to start thinking about is being the manager, not the one who does all the work. And Michael Gerber in the E-Myth Revisited talks beautifully about this. It's a brilliant book. If any of you want to read a book about it, I would definitely have a look at this book by Michael Gerber. And the third element is that you need to be the entrepreneur in your business. And so unfortunately what happens is that we spend too much time being a technical expert, being the technician in the business, and the business can't grow, and the business can't get any bigger, and if it tries to, it means that we're more stressed. So really what we need to do is develop that manager and entrepreneur, develop the leadership side of our business, the entrepreneurial vision and the moving forward, and the manager of how to actually manage those people who are going to come in and do that technical stuff for you. But you may say, well, how do I do that then? Well, that's what the catalytic converter is all about. So 4 things. We want to leverage the resources that we have. But in order to do that, what we need to do is we have to enable, not disable teams. We have to enable people. And we have to grow them. But in order to enable people, we have to assure trust both ways. We have to trust people and we have to be trusted. And then you may be saying, well, how do we do that? Well, that's why we have to work on that mindset. So developing our mindset will naturally start to assure the trust of people, because we are thinking in a different way. We are wanting to trust, we are wanting to enable, which means that we will be able to leverage. Now, obviously today we don't have time to go into huge amounts of detail with this, but that's what we do when we work with people on our coaching courses and we work with people in our training courses. And if you want more information, then at the end I'm going to give you some links so that you can actually go and get more information about us, but also about the team performance engine and the elements that we're talking about here, so you can learn a bit more for yourselves as well. We also have a blog that you can sign up to if you like, because that will give you, again, more information and ideas around all of these things that we're talking about today. So it's your turn now. I want you to think about this. What is it that you do too much of? Then what can you get rid of? What could you delegate that you don't delegate at the moment, that you think, well, actually, do you know what? I should do that. I'm just going to take a sip of my drink. Oh, that's better. Okay, so what do you do too much of and what could you delegate? And what difference would it make to your business? So I want you to write this down. I want you to really think about, what is this? The next question you probably need to ask then is, who in your business can step up and take some of this? Because at the moment there's probably going to be somebody that is underutilized and not enabled and is not trusted, that you could trust if you set those conditions, those 6 elements, and you could delegate to, and you could remove some of the stuff that you're doing that you don't need to be doing, that's just making you busy. Because when you're not so busy, you can start to be the manager and the entrepreneur. You can start to develop other things, more strategic things, because you're not stuck in the weeds of what you're doing. And then the last question then is, what stops me? What stops me from doing this? And that will take you back to those 6 elements, because one of those or more will stop you, and you need to work on those things. And that's where I'm going to leave you to think about, what do you need to do in your business? So if you'd like to know more, well, you can have our complimentary leadership MOT if you'd like. If you'd like to email us, julie@transformingperformance.co.uk. What I will do is I will send you details of the 6 elements, and I will ask you to fill in a short survey about you, and you will then be able to have a complimentary 30-minute leadership MOT with us, and we'll find out what's going to work for you, all the things we said, the 6 elements, what's going to work for you, and what do you need to do in your business to improve your leadership and therefore your results in business. So that's the first thing. If you'd like that, you're very welcome. And also, if you would like to get your free Team Performance Engine report, you can get it here at www.teamperformanceengine.uk. And it's not .co.uk, it's just .uk. And there you can sign up for that, which will give you a series of 7 emails that will detail more about what we've talked about here. And here's my contact details anyway. So our company's Transforming Performance Limited, and my telephone number there, and the mobile number, email, and our website there for you to get in contact if you would like. And thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, then please feel free to ask them now.
Well, thank you very much. Folks, we are now open for question and answers. If you have any questions, you could either insert it in the question box. There's a question box, or you could equally raise your hand. There's a hand icon available on the webinar console, so please click on it if you want to have an audio conversation with the speaker or with Julie. So let me go straight to the question box. There are a couple of questions already posted. Julie, what do I do if I have someone in my team who is obstructive and won't engage?
Yes, well, the first thing is to understand why. Why won't they engage? And as we talked about here on the second point in engagement, this is about understanding where that person's coming from, what's their perspective, and what's going on for them. And the biggest thing here is the more information, the better. Because it's very easy to make assumptions about why that person won't engage and why they're being obstructive. So I'll give you an example. There was a guy in my team a long time ago when I was in the police who was nearing retirement, and he didn't want to engage. And every time anybody came up with an idea, he said, I'm not doing it. I don't want to. No, I'm not changing for anybody. And we all thought he was just very miserable, not a very nice person, and just very awkward. But actually, when we did a little bit of digging, he was very computer illiterate. He wasn't very good with computers. So every time anybody suggested anything, quite often it was about improving or using a computer or doing something with a computer. And he actually was embarrassed and scared. And so once we found that out, we actually realized that, well, it's nothing to do with him being really awkward. He just didn't know how to do it. So he was hiding that. And quite often people will have a different reason than you think for not engaging. So once we found that out, we got over that barrier, then we were able to engage him. And once he was given some extra training and some support, he was so much more engaged in all of the ideas that we had and all of the work that we were doing, because he knew how to do it. So if you have somebody who's being awkward, as you see, or isn't engaging, what you need to do is really to talk to them and understand where they're coming from, what kind of behavioral style they have. I don't know if anybody's ever done any behavioral profiling. We use DISC and Talent Dynamics. If anybody wants to do any profiling, then please let me know, because it's one of my favorite things. But that also is something where you'll find out where's the person coming, what's their perspective. And once you know that, that information will help you to engage with them and help them to engage with you. I hope that helps.
Well, thank you very much. Another one. Why do the team not seem to share my enthusiasm for the business as I do?
This one is one of the biggies, is that we get this a lot with people as business owners. Say, well, nobody cares. Nobody's as enthusiastic as me. And of course, your employees are probably never going to be quite as enthusiastic as you. But when you look at companies like Apple and Amazon and Zappos, the shoe company, where you see people that are really, really enthusiastic and totally bought into the whole ethos of the company, the values of the company, and the vision for the company, you think, well, why some and not others? And this takes us back to really understanding what your company stands for. So that focus and direction we talked about at the start, if your employees have the same or understanding of the vision and have the same values that your company stands for, then they will want to engage in that vision that you have. If you get the engagement part right as well, about understanding them individually as human beings and working with them there, then that will mean that they not only understand it and believe in it, but they want to be working with you as well. And that's really the key to all of this, is really understanding what your vision is and making sure they're aligned to it. And sometimes that means not working with certain people, is saying goodbye to certain people, and indeed selecting and recruiting a certain type of people with a certain values and with a similar kind of vision. You can't just take anybody. We find in family businesses quite often we struggle with this because they've employed a family member because they are a family member, not because they were the right person for the job. And that causes a lot of conflict and a lot of problems. So I would say you need to make sure they align to the values and the vision of the organization.
Thank you very much. Another one. There's a conflict in my team. How do I get people to get on better with each other and focus on the work that needs to be done?
Okay. So people not getting on with each other, I think it's one of those things that there are two reasons why it happens. One, because naturally people are different and they don't see the same. It's the same as their values don't align, let's say. But also it can be if there is no clear direction, because I suppose it's a bit like children sometimes, is that if you don't give a clear direction, then people will argue their own agenda. And the more they argue their own agenda and they want what they want, then the more chance there is for conflict. If you then add in the mix that there's a different kind of person, somebody likes to go fast and moving fast and making quick decisions and want to just get on with something, and there are other people who want to slow down and think about something and are more considering what their options are, the more you've got of that, coupled with the lack of a clear vision, I mean, the more likely you are to have conflict in your team, because they are not focused on the one thing you want them to focus on. So when you've got conflict, again, it's about understanding where's that conflict coming from. Is it coming from the difference in values? Is it coming from something that actually happened? Is it and quite often coming from a lack of communication, either between you and the team, where something isn't clear, or is it becoming from members of the team where they're not communicating well? So the way to improve a conflict, or to get rid of a conflict in the team, is to get them talking, is to get them to see the value that they all share, and get them to understand that we're all working towards the same thing. So the clearer your one thing you're working towards is, the more likely they are to stop focusing on themselves and start focusing on where you want to go as an organization. But we deal with that a lot, and it takes a lot more than 2 minutes to answer the question normally. But here we can give you an understanding. But if you want to talk about it more, then obviously send me an email, and we can talk that through and find out what's really going on in there.
Well, I know. Thank you very much. And we have one last question. I just want people to get on with the task, but it doesn't seem to happen. What can I do?
Well, there are many reasons in terms of why people don't get on with the task. One of the biggest reasons is going back to the way in which we lead, in that we disable people quite often. So let's look at that one example. If people don't get on with what they're supposed to be doing, it's because they haven't taken ownership of what they should be doing. But more than likely, that's because we haven't given them ownership. And quite often we give people responsibility, but we don't give them the authority to go ahead and make their own decisions. And when we don't give them the authority, it's probably because we don't trust them. So it's coming back to our mindset. So if you couple that with the skills area of developing confidence and technical capability, what happens a lot is that where we don't give them either the confidence, or we don't give them the capability, or we don't trust them to do it, we then set them up to fail. We set them up to wait for the next instruction. And so what you'll find is you get more and more frustrated because they'll just wait for you to tell them what to do. They won't make a good decision. They won't put their risk anything. They won't step up and make a decision because they either don't know how, or they don't think that that's okay. And that's where the skills development is really important, and to develop your skill as a coach, as a leader. And what I mean by that is, rather than telling everybody what to do every time they ask, is actually asking more questions. Asking, what do they think they should do? What would you do if it were your choice? And develop a way of eking out of people what they believe in, what they think the right answer is, because there's a whole lot more capability than many people believe in themselves. And so when you get them believing in themselves and you trust them to make good decisions, that's when they will take a risk and they will make a decision and they will come up with answers for themselves. And that is the point at which then you sit there, you're thinking about something and they've already done it. And that's really great, because it means that you can then build on that and you can trust them even more, which means that you're less busy and they're very happy because they're actually taking on responsibility and they have an authority to do it. That's the short answer.
Well, thank you very much, Julie. That really brings us towards the end of the webinar. Any quick concluding remarks that you would like to give before we conclude it?
Yes, I think just in closing, look, is really concentrate on you and the awareness of how you show up. If you just ask those 6 questions, you will be a better leader because you'll be more aware of the impact that you're having. It's as simple as that. Obviously, it takes work. Obviously, it needs all the things that we've talked about, but actually you can do this. So thank you very much for listening, and thanks for having me.
Thank you indeed, and I really want to thank you once again on behalf of the Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship for taking the time to deliver this live webinar on this platform. So thank you very much once again, Julie.
You're very welcome.
And thank you all of those who participated in this webinar. Please stay tuned to webinar.mile.org to learn about our upcoming programs, or equally to access the recorded versions. We are recording it and it will be uploaded on the same website. With that note, I would like to end and conclude. So you all have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are calling from. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much.